to the internet. Hello to everyone watching. I just thought I'd quickly discuss languages. Now, some of you may or may not know I have been learning Italian for a year and a half, and because I have French ancestry and French is a very commonly learned language, so people won't really question me about why I'm learning French as they do with Italian. So I decided to take French more seriously and to learn French. So I just wanted to discuss some differences from what I've noticed from the two languages. I've noticed that English compared to other languages is actually here we go. English compared to other languages is actually more complicated. What is going on with there we go. Yeah, English compared to other languages is much more complicated. For example, I've noticed that in French you just have est-ce que, is it that, instead of do you have in Italian, you'll have o or a or I, depending on who you're speaking to and whether you're speaking about yourself or someone else. It seems it's much easier. You don't have all these words in other languages. They break everything down, and it's so much simple. Like, I was looking at patois because obviously my most recent ancestors, well, they're not even. Most of them are still alive. My most recent family members, I mean that as in the most recently born ancestors that are still alive. What? Right, that doesn't make any sense. Basically, most of my relatives that are alive, as in parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, who are no longer alive, but, family that were born within the past 1 or 2 centuries, are Caribbean. And obviously, there's many different parts of the Caribbean that make up my mix, because, I am mixed race, that's my ethnicity. That's my race. I don't know if that's the same thing. But yeah, so obviously we have Trinidadian and Tobago, Dominican and Grenadian. So I thought I'd look at Trinidad patois, and it's actually, obviously it's very similar to French. So one reason why I'm learning French as well is because it would help me with, learning patois, but mainly, because of my ancestors, long way down the line, there we go, those are my English words, were French. So yeah. I have a lot of different kind of ancestors, I have like Jewish ancestors on my dad's side from what my dad told me, and then on my mum's side we've got French ancestors, so yeah, obviously British ancestors too, as in ancestors from Wales and England, and ancestors from the Caribbean, obviously. So, I've got all different sorts of ancestors, all different sorts of nationalities within the family tree and family ancestry. But yeah, a lot of languages seem to be much easier than English. English is actually one of the hardest languages. It actually is. I'm a native speaker. It's my mother tongue. English is my mother tongue. It's my first language. But apparently, I've read this online and I've heard people speak about it, on YouTube and, people that I know. Compared to other languages like French or Spanish or Italian or German, although German words can look a bit long, they can be long, but when you pronounce it, it's so easy. And obviously they have shorter words, you could say, instead. You don't have to have that harsh sound when you speak in German. The same thing with French. When you speak French, obviously you need the sound, but that comes easily to me. I've always found that, like, with languages, I find the sounds very easy to pronounce, like r in Italian, like vorrei, for example, I would like, and then obviously, in French, you have I would like, je voudrais. So I find it sort of, that probably wasn't the best example, but there you go. So it's kind of easy for me to pronounce those sounds. I find that actually a lot of people can't do the a lot of people can't do that, and a lot of more people can't do so they struggle with speaking certain Slavic languages and certain Latin-based languages like Italian and Spanish and Portuguese and Romanian. That's it, really. I don't really consider Mexican a language because Mexicans speak Spanish, don't they? There might be a separate language. There might be a Mexican language, but I haven't heard of that. I've only heard of like Spanish. But yeah, I don't know. I've always admired languages. I've always admired how languages sound, the types of sounds in the languages. I've always admired people that can speak more than one language fluently, because I see online, I see, I saw an 8-year-old girl that speaks 8 languages. She's learned like one every year. She could speak like, I don't know, Chinese, French, like Russian, German, maybe, I don't know, maybe Italian, I don't know, Spanish. She knew loads of languages, and it was unbelievable. There are people that are younger than me that can speak more languages than me to a better extent than I can. But obviously, there's that whole myth that when you grow up, I mean, I'm 19, so as you get older, it's more difficult for you to learn languages. But I think languages are very, very important. It's important to make sure that you learn languages because a lot of native English speakers, not myself, but I'm a native English speaker, so a lot of other native English speakers are a little bit ignorant in the sense that they choose to not learn other popular or maybe not so popular foreign languages because they speak English and English is a global language, although not everyone speaks it. In fact, because of the immigration in the past 10 years in England, here in England, you know, you'll speak to some people on the streets. We have a lot of Eastern European and Asian immigrants, especially Eastern European, especially Polish. In fact, Polish is the second most spoken language in England at the moment because of the number of Polish immigrants. But the the sounds and everything to the English language, obviously, I mean, I know it can confuse people that are not like native speakers. It can confuse them a lot because it doesn't quite sound like there'll be a word that's spelt a certain way and you'll pronounce it a different way, and then you'll see the same word and it's a little bit similar and it'll be pronounced differently. So I can understand it's probably very confusing. Whereas other languages, it's sort of very straightforward. They only have a few, maybe one way to pronounce this certain letter in this certain sentence, and etc. etc. So yeah, that's my opinion on languages really. But yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in languages. I think it is important to learn more than one language. It would benefit you, like languages that are spoken in a lot of countries throughout the world. I mean, Spanish is obviously very, very popular. French is very popular. I'd say, I mean, there are a few countries that speak German, like Austria, Germany, Switzerland. There's probably more. Arabic is spoken in a lot of countries. So there are some other languages besides English that are very common that would kind of benefit people to learn. Because I mean, you don't have to limit yourself to one language. Plus, I've heard that there's benefits to learning more than one language. Like apparently, it decreases your chances of getting Alzheimer's or something like that. Or if you learn more than one language, it can improve your mental health, things like that. Also, it's interesting. It's like you find a new way of speaking, a new way of expressing yourself, sort of thing. It's like language. Some people see language as art, you know, because you're speaking, you're expressing yourself through words. So I mean, there is an artistic perspective, point of view to languages. I definitely advise people if they wanted to learn other languages to do so, because it can be fun, and you'll learn new things. You'll have something to focus on. Once you learn a certain part of a language and you understand it, then it's like kind of like, for some people, like, you want to understand more until you understand the whole thing. Or for example, you might hear a song in another language and then you'll want to understand what they're singing about. Like for example, with me, when I've listened to songs in different languages, I've thought, I don't understand this. So it's made me want to learn the language more to actually understand what it is that they're singing about, what it is that they're like talking about, etc., etc. So that's been one of the motivations for me for learning languages. So, but I definitely advise people to learn languages if they wanted to, because I mean, no harm can come out of learning languages. Another thing I would say is for people to not be so judgmental to people that want to learn very specific languages that are not so common. Like for me, obviously, learning Italian, I've had many, in fact, almost all Italians that I speak to will ask me, why are you learning Italian? Why do you want to learn Italian? Why are you learning Italian? Why are you learning, like, constantly. People just asking me why I want to learn Italian, instead of what interests you about that language. So if you're not English and someone's learning your language, the best thing to say is what interests you in this particular language, my language, you know, etc. Rather than why are you learning it. It's sort of, it can come across a bit sort of, you know, not very nice. So it's better to be open-minded to people that want to learn other languages, because there's nothing really wrong with that, and the person is trying to educate themselves and they're trying to improve their lingual ability and be bilingual or trilingual or multilingual. So that's what I have to say on languages.